I recently started working on a project called Nimdow, which is a tiling window manager written in the Nim programming language. It's aiming to be a replacement for my current tiling window manager that I use, which is either Awesome or DWM. If you're not familiar with a tiling window manager, they essentially automatically lay out windows for you so that no windows overlap, like this. This is Awesome Window Manager, but I'm going to use it to showcase some of the things about Nimdow that I'll be adding soon. So yeah, that's basically what a tiling window manager does. It also allows you to move between these different tags or workspaces. So I can hop between, you see right now 2 is selected because it's blue. I can hop over to 1 and 3, nothing's over there, back to 2. It's very keyboard driven, very fast. And essentially this is what I'm creating. My goal is for it to be minimal and have some sensible configuration defaults and be pretty easy to configure. So really quick, I want to jump into the roadmap, things I've implemented, and what I'm planning on having implemented for the beta release. Version 0.5 is going to be the beta release, and I'm planning on having that out by June 1st. So first of all, a couple things that I've added is the tag system, like I just showed you at the top. Being able to full screen windows, that's with a key binding. Right now it's pressing Super F will full screen a window, and also having applications being able to request to be full screen. Like if you press F11 in a browser, that comes through the Xlib server as a client message most of the time. So that has to be handled. So that's been implemented. The default layout is the master stack layout, which in brief is this layout. You have one master window, typically one master window, and then multiple windows added to the quote unquote stack. You can also increment the number of windows in the master area or decrement it. So that's basically what that is. That's been implemented. Planning on adding a monocle layout, which is having multiple windows displayed like this, where it's taking up a lot of real estate, but they're actually kind of stacked on top of each other and you could navigate back and forth between them. Pretty simple to add, just kind of busy work. Haven't had the time to do that yet. Key bindings to close windows, toggle full screens, navigate between windows, so you could, select windows like this using a key binding rather than having to use your mouse. Being able to navigate tags, which of course is going from 2 to 1 to 3 like I showed earlier, and moving windows between tags. I can move a window. Let's say here I'm on tag number 2. I'll move this to tag number 3 and then view tag number 3. Now we're on tag 3. So essentially that's what that functionality is. A couple of things I need to add is being able to add or remove window per tag. That might sound similar to what we were just saying, but with a tag system as opposed to a workspace system, you can add a window to multiple tags. So here this window's on tag 3. I can kind of add that window to tag 2 if I press the right key binding. So now it's on 2 and 3. You can see it looks like nothing is changing here. Let's go back to 3 and open up like a couple windows. And so this is the layout for tag 3. If I go back to tag 2, the browser is still here, but it's the only window on tag 2. Or rather, it's the only window that tag 2 has been assigned to, if you want to think about it that way. So that's the advantage of tags over workspaces. It's much more dynamic. This is what I'm planning on adding for the beta version. For the full version, I need to add a couple things. The major thing is probably floating window support. I don't have a real use case for this personally, so I'm kind of putting that off until the full release of Nimdow. And then adding some niceties, extra config options like changing the borders, the gaps, all of that. Right now that's hard-coded, but that'll get added to the configuration. And adding some extra things like being able to tune the outer gaps and inside gaps separately, stuff like that. You can come through here and track the progress. This is just a partial list. As I've said, I am still looking into what I should implement for a full version. But this is kind of way down the road. Right now I'm focusing on this. The 2 huge features I still need to implement, which is going to take the most time by far. One is multi-head support. So this just means being able to use it on multiple monitors. So right now it works really well for one monitor setup, but if you have multiple monitors, it kind of stretches over all of the monitors, which is terrible. So I need to add support for that. So if you're going to be testing this, either use it inside of Zephyr, which is a program to kind of isolate it and pretend there's only one display inside of a little window, or try it on like a laptop or disabling a monitor with XRAND or whatever. So that needs to get added. That's a big thing. And then the other is integrating with a status bar. I'm planning on integrating it with Polybar just to test it out. I might try out a few others and update to say, hey, this works with these bars really well. So those are the two main things. The rest of this is more or less busy work. I have a really straightforward way to implement the rest of this because all the groundwork has been laid out. So this is coming up pretty fast. It's been in really rapid development. If you want, you can come through and look through all of the issues I've been creating, the open and closed ones. There's been a lot of work done. And here are the pull requests that I typically have a pull request per issue. So you can go through and see why these were closed and what pull requests they were linked to. You can go through and like click this and see more details about how it was implemented, what the changes were, basic GitHub stuff. So let's go ahead. I'm going to show you the code base really quick. So this is the top level of the code base. So you have your source directory, you have your config. The config is in TOML, which is pretty easy to read. It's pretty straightforward. The way that this works is I have these predefined action names. So focus previous is focusing the previous window. Again, if you have multiple windows here on the right, you can see the outline on this middle window. So I have a key binding to move up. So that's focus previous. Focus next is going down. Let's actually, just to kind of showcase it, let's run Nimdow and do that inside of Nimdow. So I just opened up Zephyr. Zephyr allows you to run X applications inside of kind of its own window. So this is my window manager. Of course, it's really bare. At first, it's literally just a black screen. You have nothing. So I'll go ahead and on my background, make it a little prettier to look at. So you can tell, you can see focus windows with a border. Border colors green by default in my config. I'm navigating around with super J and K. So if I show that again, here is focus previous, focus next. So super J, super K, them key bindings. You can move the windows. If I do super shift J, I can move that over there. I can move it back. Super shift J. Let's and you move windows between tags. Right now, as I said, there's no status bar integration yet, so you can't see it. But right now, this is tag 1 by default. If I want, I could go to tag 2. Nothing here. Let's go back to tag 1 and let's move this window to tag 2. So super shift and 2, move that to tag 2. So if you see this move window to tag, the modifiers are ANDed together. So that means you have to have everything in the array pressed at the same time. So super and shift need to be pressed, and then keys, it could be any one of these keys, and the value is passed to the function, and that's how it's handled. So again, super shift 2 is going to move it to the next tag, and see, it looks like the window just disappeared. So let's go view tag 2. The window's here all on its own, and of course you can add more windows, navigate back to 1, 2. I can move this back to 1, go back to 1, and move this. So, it's really basic window manager stuff, but it's very functional. I'm going to go ahead and show you some of the code. It's actually, let's zoom in here a little bit so you can see this better. All right, so here's the config file, super simple. Let's go into the source directory. Nimdow.nim is kind of a bootstrap file for setting up all the key bindings, loading the config file, and starting the event listener loop, which is just listening to events from the X server. If you're not familiar with that, don't worry about it. The vast majority of the code is in this window manager class. So this handles all of the events coming from the X server. It handles sending events to the X server, sets up tags. As you can see here, I have a table of this tag object like we were talking about, and a sequence of clients, which clients are essentially windows, and a sequence is a modifiable array if you're not familiar with NIM. So if you look at the tag file or class, whatever you want to call it, this is a tag, just has an ID like you're seeing at the top. It was like 1 through 9. There is a layout per tag, I should say. So right now there's only one layout, which is that master stack layout. If we look at that here, So this is the only layout implemented. Basically, it's just fed an array or a sequence of windows, if you will, and it's told to arrange them based off of the order and how many there are. It takes gaps into account, things like that. So it's basically what that does. So we have the layout for the tag. Every time a window is like added or removed or hidden or whatever, the layout arranges the windows in its particular way. And then we're tracking the selected client and the previously selected client. So if you have, let's say you have all these windows, I'm going to select this one, and then I'll go down and select this one. If I delete that window, my cursor is no longer on it. It's going to automatically select the previous window that I had selected. And now it kind of gets shifted. So now this is the like currently selected window or whatever. I think they're both assigned to this window. So if that gets removed, it defaults to the first window in the tag. Basically how that works. But yeah, so that's why we're keeping track of that. So no weird stuff happens. If we go back to let's go back to the window manager. I'm forward declaring a bunch of functions that we're using. One thing is how we are setting up listeners. So here I'm initializing the listeners in this function. This is internal to this class. So we're listening for events from the X server, like configuring windows or clients, whatever you want to call them. Listening for messages, like if the window requests to be full screened. Map request is saying, hey, I want my window to not be hidden anymore. It already exists, but it's hidden. So this is like show my window, which causes a layout to arrange the windows over again. On enter notify is like when your cursor goes into a window, that's how you get that selection. It's pretty basic stuff. It's very similar to how a lot of other window managers do it. I won't go into a whole lot of detail about all of this. And of course, config, this is how the configuration file is loaded. By default, it is looking for your xtg config home directory slash /nimdow slash config. So again, that's documented in the README. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward stuff. And if it can't find that, then it searches for it in your home /.config directory. And then if it can't find that, then it's going to fail. So I'm going to have pretty explicit instructions for package management on how to set this up, how it should be installed and all that. So, pretty straightforward, not a whole lot of fancy stuff going on here. Just kind of wanted to give an overview of the window manager and discuss the milestone for release on June 1st for the beta release, and then later on down the road, I'll announce a release date for the full version. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Feel free to go ahead and visit the GitHub repository and open up issues. Talk about ideas of what you think you'd like to have implemented. If you run into any bugs, let me know. Submit pull requests even if you want to. And if you have questions about NIM, of course, leave that in the comments, and I could send you some links. You could join us on Discord or IRC or whatever. And yeah, that's about it.